Hello everyone. Namaste. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Well, it's late evening here in Nepal because it's GMT plus 5:45, and I hope you are doing all great. This is Suraj Gautam, a civil engineer and disaster risk reduction and management professional from Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction, and I'll be your host for today's session. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to our fifth episode on webinar on geoscience for sustainable development. Well, Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction has been regularly organizing Himalayan webinar series under the two themes. One is regarding geoscience for sustainable development, while the other is disaster risk reduction and management. So under the webinar series of geoscience for sustainable development, till date, we have successfully organized 4 episodes, and today it's the turn for the fifth one. The topic of today's webinar is importance of geoscience for achieving the sustainable development goals, key issues, challenges, and opportunities, which will be presented by Dr. Ganesh Joshi. On behalf of the organizing team, we are really grateful to our presenter who will be sharing us with his insights and healthy experiences. So we'd like to welcome our presenter, Dr. Ganesh Joshi, who is working as a researcher at the United Nations Center for Regional Development, UNCRD, Japan. The session will be moderated by Assistant Professor Dr. Basanta Raj Adhikari from Institute of Engineering, Tribhuvan University, who is also the visiting scientist of Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction. So it is indeed an honor to have insights from our distinguished speaker. Also, we would like to welcome all of our participants who are attending this session through the social media, live streaming, and as well as in the Zoom. This webinar event is also featured in the website of Relief Wave. And talking about the webinar registrations, till date we have 271 registrations from 19 countries. So to address this request, we are going live on our social media page of Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction. We'll be receiving the queries and feedback from our Zoom chat box as well as from the social media live stream. So we have been organizing this webinar series on geoscience for sustainable development on a regular basis. And we believe this webinar series has been supporting all of our early career scientists, DRR professionals, academicians, and all the participants. And yes, it is just a beginning and we'll have a long way ahead. So before starting our session for today, I'd like to share some brief introduction about the Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction. So let me share you slide. Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction is a research organization which is established with an objective to assess and understand the risks to contribute for the sustainability. Our team constitutes of professionals with expertise and experiences in the field of DRR in understanding the risks, conducting academic research, and field level implementations in Nepal and across the globe. So our vision is preparing a risk-informed societies for disaster resilient and sustainable development. And we have a mission to prioritize, train, and mobilize DRRM professionals and promote DRRM solutions through the use of science, engineering, technology, and innovation. So far, we have identified our thematic areas, and we have 4 thematic areas. Number 1 includes the disaster risk reduction and management consulting works. And the second one is regarding the research and development. The third one is we have a concept of disaster academy. And the fourth one is regarding the youth in disaster risk reduction and management. So I would like to talk about some of the initiatives which we have been doing. During this COVID-19 response, we collaborated and with a participative approach, we collaborated with a number of organizations and launched an information portal that was endorsed by Ministry of Health and Population, and the different sorts of information regarding the medical facilities were disseminated through this mobile and web application. Besides, we have also been carrying out the UAV surveying for the first time in Hetauda sub-metropolitan city. I would like to share a short video of the works which we have been doing. And in this initiative, we collaborated with Nepal Flying Labs and Nepal Engineers Association, Bagmati Province, and we carry out and a number of organizations, and then we carried out the drone survey. So far, we have already captured more than 16,000 images of 110 square kilometer. So we have selected a specific area and processed them, and we have been creating different sorts of layers and using them for different sorts of overlays. So in this way, we have been working, as we can see in the slide as well. Besides, we have also been involving in several number of projects that includes the transboundary research project that we have been doing on the Sino-Nepal landslide corridors. So we have also been collaborating with the local governments and bringing out different sorts of initiative. So this much for the introduction. And now I would like to share some house rules for this webinar. The audio and video of the participants will be switched off. The overall session of the webinar will be recorded. For any queries, the participants can write up in the chat box or in the comment section of Facebook streaming live. Waiting room has been enabled and only registered users with their original identity will be allowed to enter the webinar room. Also, I would like to request our participants to rename and keep their name as mentioned in the registered link. Also, I would like to request our participants to strictly avoid using the annotations. Annotating during the presentation will be taken offensive and the participants will be removed from the webinar. The feedback links will be provided during the session and we'll be providing participation certificates to those who fill up those feedback survey form. So without any delay, I would like to move on to our session, and may I request Dr. Basantaraj Adhikari to proceed further with his moderation. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Suraj. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you very much for providing me opportunity to moderate this session today, which is very important in terms of the application of geoscience in sustainable development to achieve the sustainable development goals or in different areas. And today we have requested our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Ganesh Joshi, who is a researcher at United Nations Center for Regional Development, UNCRD, Japan. He's well known. Originally, he's from Nepal, but he's working in Japan and all over the world for a long time. He has completed PhD from University of Ryukyu, Japan in 2010. At the United Nations, he is mainly responsible for the environmentally sustainable transport initiative and the regional EST forum in Asia. The regional EST forum in Asia is a leading transportation project in Asia, which is composed of a high-level government representative from 25 member countries in Asia, including the Russian Federation. So Dr. Joshi has extensive experiences in policy and planning for building safe, resilient, liable, and sustainable cities and communities. His research focuses on smart and resilient city development, natural hazards, and disaster risk reduction, environmental protection, climate change areas. He was actively involved in organizing Asian Ministerial Forum and mayoral forums on EST and other international workshops, seminars, and training programs of the United Nations for policymakers, planners, and in nationals and city government officials on land use planning, sustainable transport, safe, resilient, and liable urban development, among others. Dr. Joshi has published numerous research papers and articles in national and international journals. Beside that, he is my senior during my university days. We studied together in Tribhuvan University in Kathmandu, Nepal, where he had done his MSc in geology and then moved to Japan. And we are very close working, and I'm working with him for a long time. He's my senior and very pleased to welcome him. And, beside that, he has lots of, ground experiences in developing countries, including Nepal and other in Asian region. So definitely he will provide much more information about what is the importance of geoscience or earth science. How can we use this subject, why this is important to achieve the sustainable goal. And we have requested him to give a presentation, and he accepted that, and we are very honored to invite him for today's presentation and webinar. So today he's going to present importance of geoscience for achieving the Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs, key issues, challenges, and opportunities. So Dr. Joshi, the virtual floor is yours. Please proceed. Please unmute your microphone, Dr. Joshi.
Okay. Thank you so much for your introduction and inviting me, Dr. Basant Adhikari and Mr. Suraj Gautam. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm very sure that this kind of webinar will provide wealth of knowledge to all sector, all the people, from student to expert. And it's my great pleasure to be here today to share my expertise and my experiences on the sustainable development and what I learned from the, as you mentioned, from the ground, as well as the some kind of policy and planning aspects. So let me start my presentation here. Please allow me some time.
Yes, please make the
okay.
full presentation, and then
may I go now?
Screen. Yeah, full screen, please. Yes, absolutely fine. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. As Dr. Adhikari mentioned well, today I'm going to present in topics that which is very important one in terms of sustainable development. What are the importance of geoscientists or geosciences for achieving the sustainable development goal and SDGs? What are the key challenges, issues, and opportunity for us? So let me start from the what are the world mega trend first happening in this world, which are significantly impacting all of us, all of our life. First is population growth. As we see, there is a rapid population growth in cities nowadays. And if you see this graph here on the right side of the screen, you can see how rapidly since 1804 there was 1 billion people, and after 100 years time that multiply by the 3 billions, and even within the very small time span, within the 25 to 30 years, this multiply again by twice. So it can rapidly increasing population is not only the biggest movement which can bring a lot of challenges as well as opportunity for us, for all of us, not only geoscientists, for all the sectors. So according to the United Nations, world population will be projected by 9.8 billion by 2050, and it will reach up to 11.2 billion by 2100. So it means that how we can accommodate such a huge population which is coming up in the near future. So second mega trend is the rapid urbanization. Rapid urbanization, as we see how our cities are expanding day by day, particularly in the developing countries. In case of Asia, Asia is currently home for the 17 mega cities, which are expected to grow by 22 by 2030. So such mega cities are expanding in the developing world. At the same time, there are small cities which are less than 1 million people. Those are the cities which are rapidly expanding in terms of population growth. If you see in the in the middle of the chart, you can realize that the small towns or the cities are growing almost 4.19% compared with the mega cities, which are only 1.15. So these small towns are growing fast, and these towns are belongs to most of the developing countries in Asia and Africa. The next trend is motorization. This motorization is also the huge problem for the sustainability. It's why, because the motorization bring a lot of issues. Uh, Compare with the other part of the world, uh, OECD projected that in the Asia or the developing countries, there will be, you know, a 500% of increase in the uh, private motors in the future by 2050. So in case of Asia, if this automobile flooding is compared with the rest of the world, we can see that 119% in terms of Asia, and if we compare with the other part of the world, it is only 145%. So it means that the traffic is going fast. The public as well as private automobiles are coming on the road, and but unfortunately you have limited resources, limited roads, highways. So it is also the one of the huge issue to tackle. What are the impacts of these mega trends? If you if you go with the cities, you can see everywhere the people are, you know, struggling to walk, and all the highways or the roads are flooded with the vehicles, including the different type of vehicles, from a bus to motorcycles, all this. So if this is persist by 2050, if the same situation is happen in business as usual situation, it is predicted that almost the person by 2050, he or she will spend 106 hours per year in the traffic congestion, which means that if we imagine somebody can live by 80, then it is almost 1 year time. 1 year he or she will spend on this congestion. This is a huge burden in terms of life, in terms of health, in terms of money, everything. So the next severe impact is the air pollution. Everywhere in the world, if you see from every part of the developing world, uh, you can see in the picture here, some are represented picture from the different countries, from Vietnam to Philippines, Nepal or India, or even in the Nigeria. And Beijing, everywhere in the same condition. The air is polluted and the people are suffering with this. So what could be the role of the geoscientist in this situation? This is the big question. And definitely, as we geoscientists are working from the, you know, ocean to space, from soil to water, we have a tremendous capacity. We have a lot of opportunity to work on. But at the same time, um, I have to mention that we have a limitation, particularly in the developing countries, what we are working on. So I would like to present here some data. The WHO estimate that approximately 7 million people die every year only due to the polluted air. It is only the, you know, outdoor pollution. In case of indoor pollution, you can see there are the 4.3 million deaths in 1 year. As example, it was in 2012. So similar data can be predicted for the other years. So the next issue is the traffic accident and fatality. There are a lot of accidents happening in this because of the overwhelm of the traffic and the limited resources, particularly the highways, the roadway, and the lack of appropriate monitoring system. So if we see the data that every year 1.35 million people die in the road, uh, and this costs almost 3% of the developing country's GDP, uh, and up to 50 million more people will suffer non-fatal injuries, and which sometimes they are heavily disabled and could not able to work for the whole life. In terms of Nepal, if we see this data, unfortunately, the road accidents are increasing rapidly in Nepal and other developing countries as well. In case of 2018, here data presented that the almost 3.7% of total death is happening in Nepal, and which is the rank of the 76 in the world, which is not very good scenario. So here, the main thing is that, so how we shape our cities, how we manage our cities, how we live in our cities, that determined our future, as the almost 95% of the urban expansion is happening in the developing countries, and almost 3 billion people are living in these cities and communities. Um, which provide a lot of challenges. At the same time, of course, we have an opportunity. There are a lot of work to do to accommodate this flooding people, and we have to make a lot of cities, perhaps new cities. We have to transport existing cities, and the geologist or the earth scientist or geoscientist, we have significant role to build these cities and community safe, smart, resilient, livable, and sustainable. And as a human, before our professionalism, we have to choose what kind of city we want, what kind of city we are looking for us, for our kids, for our elderly people. So in this condition, whether we want to live in cities where you have to wait for a long time for the public transport system, or you can't cross the road for your personal, time, whether it is possible to university accessible that transport system for you, public transport. So here we have to transform these our cities, because we have a cities and rural area. If we can sense these both reasons, then we can only get the sustainability in cities and communities. So as estimation shows that low carbon sustainable transport solution can deliver 16 trillion USD by 2050. You see, this is not a small money. This is a lot of, economically, it is very, very important. At the same time, it is significantly important socially and culturally. So how we can do as a geoscientist? What can be done for this? We have to think in. Let's discuss in detail how we can build our city, how cities will be designed, how we will function in those cities, and how we manage these cities. That will determine our future survival. As I presented here city scenario, at the same time, you can see there are a lot of issues with rural areas as well. In case of Nepal, you see uh, the city is flooded with the vehicles, a lot of difficulty with the uh, crossing the roads, a lot of difficulty with air pollution, and a lot of uh, pollutions, emission, or the lot of greenhouse gases is there, and at the same time we have a soil pollution in there. But on the other hand, the rural area is facing different problems, such as there is no accessibility, there is no transport system, there is no health, and there is no education systems, well education system. This is not in only in Nepal. This is most of the developing countries. The same situation is happening. So if we see here in the graph, although rural accessibility is increasing in last decades, but still the most of the accessibility is confining in the southern part of Nepal, which is the lowland area. And if you see in the middle part, which is mainly the rugged mountains, and there are only the major cities are accessible. Other part is very less accessible. In such a situation, an estimated 700 million people from Asian part, the lack the direct access of the signal roads. And according to the World Bank, in the Nepalese people, almost 80% of these people are living in a rural area and who are suffering the most. As an example, we can see here major challenges what we are facing in rural area. This the those children who need to go schools, unfortunately they couldn't go because of a, a lack of accessibility, because of the distance of the school. And this, if we see the data here, out of 7.7 million children between age of 5 to 17 years old, uh, out of them almost 40.4% children are working. This is not allowed to work, but they are working. And and these working, out of this working children, 50% of them are working on the harmful situation, which is not acceptable. So this is the data from the ILO. In the same way, these small students sometimes need to walk long travel distance to reach the schools through the dangerous mountain trains, and as well as sometimes they have to cross the rivers. So this is really difficult for them. In the same time, we have to think how we geoscientists can contribute in the situations to improve their
Dr. Joshi, can you unmute your microphone? It's muted.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
Please
okay,
go ahead.
fine.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So similarly, in terms of health access, um, health access is also confined in the major cities as well as the flatland areas. So if you see here, in terms of the hazard, in terms of uh, uh, the as Nepal is one of the most vulnerable regions in Asia, where several natural hazards occurring every year. If the situation is not changed, I mean, business as usual condition, if we want to, improve our or the um, reduce the poverty level, if the disasters not happening, then that time happening means disaster of course happening. If we can manage well those disasters, that can happen, it can increase by 84%. However, if those severe disasters, for example earthquake, for example floods, or the other kind of landslide among others, can be not well managed, then the situation is very bad. And at that situation, our target, the countries has get the target for achieving this poverty level, that will be reduced significantly and will be reached in the 56%, which is predicted. So it means that as Nepal is one of the vulnerable countries in world, uh, and at the same time, natural disaster are increasing year by year. If you see in this left uh, graph, it clearly shows that from 1970 to till date, increasing rapidly. And all these kind of catastrophic events uh, are increasing in, and particularly impacting in the poor and growing cities are affected the most. Um, even small flood can affect the whole city. We can see recently in Kathmandu, the small, one day intense rainfall was flooded the city as a whole. So it is a one example. So um, as the in the disaster risk reductions, we have a lot of opportunity to work on. Um, we can as a earthquake scientist, we can predict. Of course, the earthquake prediction is very vast job and it's very difficult. But still, there are some hopes, and there are a lot of modelings there. We can say based on the uh, tectonics, active tectonics, geodynamics, Nepal is active, and when estimated when the next cycle of the earthquake can be occur. So this is the one. Similarly, we can predict the uh, landslide or the uh, uh, intense rainfall, all this kind of hazard. So this can be helpful to protect life and property in the country. So if we see the global death from the natural disaster from 1900 to till date, 2019, you can see this um, natural disaster kill almost average 60,000 people per year. Uh, and this is responsible for the 0.1% of global death in total. So in case of Asia Pacific, uh, almost 2 million people have been killed in disaster since 1970, which is almost 60% of the global death toll. And if we compare with the Asian countries, of course, this is happening in the most of the developing countries as this disaster. Of course, disaster is happening all over the world, but due to lack of disaster management, disaster management institution, disaster management capacity, limitation of the knowledge, policy gaps, a lot of things are there. So which is making very vulnerable to the most of the developing countries. So economical losses from this natural disaster is almost 232 billion in only the year of 2019. You can see if we see only 1 year such a huge um, economical loss happening, so how much we are losing in this disaster. If in terms of past 50 years, you can see in the 1.3 trillion losses is happening in the Asia and the Pacific region only. So this is same situation is Nepal and other developing country. In terms of Nepal, if we see in the uh, 2015 earthquakes, Nepal lost almost um, half of their GDP. And why this is happening is that most of the developing countries do not have state-of-the-art art early warning system, strong enforcement of the building codes, and lack of land use planning, people and environment friendly transport systems, climate and disaster resilient infrastructure and services, among other. So this is the table here which shows that the top of 5 world natural catastrophe happened in 2019, and then Nepal, India, and Myanmar, which basically which are flooded and the landslide happened, and people almost 708 people were killed. So this is the second largest world natural catastrophe. So every year that is happening in this developing world. So how to tackle, how to address this issue is the main question. And there is opportunity for the earth scientists and geologists which are monitoring, uh, evaluating, which are investigating, which are um, predicting these major uh, disasters. through land use map, through their satellite map, through the different type of research and development processes, and which significantly help to manage after disaster situation or the predict for the pre-disaster situation. And here this is the index, vulnerability index, which shows the Nepal on the top compared to other countries. As we already know by now, there are different causes. Uh, there are some natural causes as well as anthropogenic causes why the natural disaster happening in Nepal. Uh, Mostly rock and fragile geophysical structures, very high peaks, mountains, heavy rainfall during the monsoon season, high angle of slopes, complex geology, active tectonics, and variable climatic conditions are the major natural causes. Whereas the increasing population growth, unplanned and unmanaged urban settlements, deforestation, soil erosions. At the same time, there is a weak economic condition, low literacy rate, particularly level of understanding and awareness is lacking uh, in most of the cases in particularly rural areas. So as now the Nepal is divided into 7 provinces and 77 districts, and all the 753 local level governments are there. So now this is the good opportunity for those local governments who can investigate, who can predict, who can do sustainable development. They need or scientists, they need geologists, they need um, you know uh, geo, geophysicists, or who can contribute to their development, who can make their cities more safe, sustainable, livable through working through different type of work. For example, if they want to build as an example, uh, mostly those gaon palikas. Now there are 460 gaon palikas which have very limited resources, and they have most of them are located in the mountain area as well. So they want to build their cities, they want to build construct their road system or infrastructure. Those geologists, if there is they can hire one geologist, at least one geologist for their resident official. This is a big opportunity for them to make their cities and community resilient and sustainable. At the same time, this is very good for the geologist or geoscientist who can get the opportunity and or the jobs, and they have a good opportunity to contribute for the sustainable development for the local level. Another world mega trends is the climate change and global warming, which is everywhere in the world, which has impacted every sector, every country, every region. But particularly if we see this map, we can see the red area. Area is particularly in African and the Asian regions. Asian region particularly in the from Karakoram to this Himalayan region, which from Pakistan, Nepal to the Tibet and Myanmar region. And why this is very risky area? Because of the mountains, because of glacier. The These glaciers are melting due to the global warming. As a, Even though Paris climate aim to keep the global average temperature rise by 2 degrees Celsius, even uh, uh, in the Himalayan area, if the Paris climate agreement can achieve those, still our glacier will be melting, because in this area, if you see uh, in this area, uh, those melting, the temperature is rising. Still, even we can get this 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level. And therefore, the Asian Development Bank and UK aid studies, they have conducted one study in South Asia, and that predicted that almost 1.8% of the annual GDP will be lost by the 2050 due to the climate change conditions. And due to climate change, there are climate-induced natural disasters happening in this world now, and most of them are in severely impacting in the developing countries, particularly in Asian regions. According to the United Nations, out of 5, 3 cities worldwide will be um, with the 0.5 million inhabitants are high risk for the natural disaster because of this climate change condition. And similarly, the 43% of this event is happening in the Asia. And in terms of fatality, we can say this is almost two-thirds. It is 75, almost 75, 74% of fatalities occur in this region. And similarly, this is happening in the mountain areas, particularly like Nepal and these mountain belt regions. And that cost almost 480 billion loss of life and property damage due to these weather and climate-related disasters. As I mentioned before, how climate change impact on the Hindu Kush Himalaya, including Nepal Himalaya or the Indian Himalaya or the Himalayan territory. The recent report, which is conducted by the ICMOD and other colleagues, they predicted that, they indicate that even in the best case scenario, global warming is kept into the 1.5 degrees centigrade, but the temperature in the Hindu Kush Himalaya will definitely rise at least 0.3 degree. And that will happen in the Karakoram area is up to 0.7 degree higher, which means that there is a lot of adverse effect on mountain biodiversity, ecology, entire mountain environment, water resources, all this. And the glacier will be melting due to this, and there is a risk for glacier lake outbursts and flooding hazards in this mountain region, which have significant socioeconomic implications. If we see here in the graph on the left side, annual mean temperature in the Himalayan regions is increasing in the last century, increasing, and then which have a really different impact, not only in the one sector. There are different dimensions, from agriculture to water reserve, or in Himalayan tourism to in the Himalayan rivers, which will be maybe bringing a lot of water flow, and there will be disasters, flooding happen. At the same time, after some time, they will be run out of water or the ice, and there will be drought happen in the future. So another mega trend will be this COVID, which is bringing a lot of difficult situation now. The recent research predicted that the cost of the COVID will be 8 to 9 trillion. This is just the preliminary observation. That will be definitely will rise. And the world GDP is declining by 6% by now due to the COVID. And there are a lot of fatalities happening. That is, and this extreme case bring a lot of challenges for the all sectors, to all countries, in the all regions, and then we have to tackle with this. As we see the United Nations with all the member countries, they adopted the UN Sustainable Development Agenda, which is called the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs, which represent the plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. And this universally agreed SDG aim to eradicate the global poverty, hunger, improve health and well-beings, ensure quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, provide decent work environment, end unsustainable consumption and patterns, and then facilitate sustainable and inclusive growth by reducing inequality, develop sustainable cities and communities through social equity, economical development, and environmental protection. Therefore, achieving these SDGs by 2030, we need a concrete and coordinated effort from the entire community, including geoscientists, geologists, all the scientists, and all the sectors in the globe. And we, earth scientists, have a vital role to play to achieving these goals. Here, I would like to briefly go into one by one how earth scientists can contribute towards these goals. We understand how, we have to reduce the poverty. So how earth scientists, how geologists can help to poverty reduction or the help to economical growth. As we know, all scientists, as I already mentioned before, all scientists are working different areas, from mining to tunneling, from space to ocean. So they have a lot of opportunity to bring a lot of different kind of industrial or the or doing business, lot of jobs. For example, if Nepal have very limited mining now. If Nepal or the local governments or the central government can figure out there are the different kind of natural resources existing in the Himalayan area, this is already known. If we can mine those, if we can utilize those through the using the earth scientists in a different way, it can help the people. The, we know there are a lot of examples now. Now the local government are collecting the river gravels or the stones, and they are selling. I mean, government not selling, private sector are engaged on this, and they are utilizing that and selling for the different purpose. But how we have to think as a scientist, how we can utilize those people, those grains or those stones, those rocks, which can be value added, which can be built for the different infrastructure, different home building, roads. So there are a lot of things to do, and it can create a lot of jobs which can reduce the poverty. So second, zero hunger. Zero hunger is there are people we can see here. According to FAO, 1/3 of the food produced for human consumed is lost in the one place, and the other place, particularly in the developed countries. And whereas in the developing countries, almost 690 million people worldwide to go hungry on bed. So this is the very unfortunate that in this situation, how we can reduce the hunger. This is the main target of the second goal. And in these earth scientists which have a wealth of knowledge, particularly in the agriculture geologists, they can produce using agriculture knowledge to bring how they can utilize that knowledge to help the farmers, and what kind of soils are there, what kind of minerals is needed, how they can protect from the soil erosion, topsoil erosion, how they can build a small or thin road to reach the agricultural land, and how they can collect, how the farmers can collect those their produce and bring those on the market, sell. And in every part, there is a role for the geoscientists, particularly agriculture geologists. In terms of health and well-beings, the more than 1.6 billion people are in difficult situation to get basic health services, and at least 400 million people have no basic health care. In such a situation, particularly developing countries, there are a lot of diseases happening due to the water pollution, due to the water contamination, such as arsenic contamination is happening even in Nepal and Bangladesh or many other developing countries. And geoscientists have the big role to monitor, to identify their resources, their source, what is the source of this contamination, how this contamination can be removed from the groundwater. And at the same time, the hydrogeologists, they can figure out a lot of sources of water, drinking water, which can be utilized for the well-being of the people, and which definitely brings a lot of opportunity to make the people healthy. And at the same time, I would like to mention here one of the case studies which has done in India. If small infrastructure, rural road can be developed in the project area, and it can also enhance the positive impact for the accessibility of healthcare. Um, this result shows that 30% of the people have better access once these uh, rural road have been constructed in those areas. So in addition, as now lot of local governments are building their roads in the different areas, mountain areas. So there is a big role for the geoscientists or the geologists to find out what is the better alignment. They can make a better mapping, and they can suggest to the engineers and other colleagues to what would be the best alignment to take such kind of roads, which is considered the protected from the natural hazards, future natural hazards, and other impacts. So the fourth is the quality education. As the almost 263 million children and youth are remain out of school, this is a huge burden for the countries to make to to achieve the target of quality education for all. So in this situation, geoscientists or scientists can provide a lot of um, educational programs from the kindergarten to university level, and they can provide the capacity building program for the policymaker and planner, and at the same time they can utilize their wealth of knowledge for the online teaching, or the make some collaboration with the international sectors or international and better universities from the developing countries, and make some kind of research and innovation in the field. So there are a lot of opportunities for the geoscientist. I can give you here examples. For example, in Japan, the geology or this DRR um, is really vital, important for the kids and the students. And from the kindergarten, they want to teach them how to react, how to respond during, before, and after the these disaster events. So if we can teach the small children in the school what kind of disaster can be happen in your local area, or the how you can prevent those possible disasters, how you can teach to your colleagues or your family to protect from those disasters. It is very, very important, as these small children have a very good connection with the family and the other. They have a and they can teach their parents as well, and at the same time they can learn how to save themselves and their colleagues in school or outside from the disasters. This is just one example. There are a lot of other examples to quantify, to make, or to build and contribute by the geoscientist. Gender equality, and gender equality have very vital role in the sustainable development. As we can see that we can see that the recent report, it is not recent, but 2015, the McKinsey and Global Institute, they published one report which shown that global gross domestic product will be raised by 12 trillion USD if the gender equality will be occurred. So it is very important for all geoscientists community to make sure that all the opportunity are equally distributed or accessible for all without considering their gender discrimination, and we have to provide a lot of opportunity for the girls or women and in our working environment, which can bring lot of jobs, which can bring a lot of other opportunities, and it can bring economical and social uh, uh, improvement in the developing countries as well. So clean water is the also big issue for the world. Almost 2 billion people worldwide, and particularly 12% of Asians, they do not have the safe drinking water, and the 2.3 billion people worldwide, they lack the access of basic sanitation. In this situation, geoscientists and the geologists have the big role to find out the safe drinking water, and particularly hydrogeologists, they can bring a lot of opportunity to groundwater and spring water for drink to people, and which have a significant improvement to get the clean water by 2030 for all. Similarly, as somehow all these SDGs are connected with the geoscientists or the geologists. However, some are indirectly connected, some are directly connected. In terms of this affordable clean energy part, you can see the almost 3 billion people, they rely on the wood, coal, charcoal, or animal waste now. So in this situation, we have a lot of opportunity to bring renewable energy, particularly the geothermal energy, hydro energy, solar energy, wind energy, we can find out the safe extraction of the natural resources, which can help to achieve the SDG 7 by 2030, and the geoscientists have the big role on that. Similarly, geologists and geoscientists can contribute to build a decent working environment among their colleagues and help to economic growth, stability, geo-based industries they can produce, and geotourism or geopark can be developed, and which are not doing in these developing countries particularly. And as Nepal is the one of the best example of the livable live geologically live natural laboratory, and it can be open for the all of the world, which can provide a lot of opportunities for economical growth as well as new ties with the research and collaboration. And at the nine, this industry, innovation, and infrastructure, the geologist also can help to develop different type of infrastructure, hydropowers, tunnels, dams, roads, highways, airports, and bridges. And these are really significant to build the country or the city. So inequality in the region or the country is the big problem. If we see within a region, there are inequalities. Of course, within a country also, in the different states, they have inequality, particularly this inequality, social inequalities, there are economic inequalities there. So most of the in case of world, almost world reaches 10%. They have the 40% of global income, and only 22% of the global income was received by the top one, compared to the 10% of the lower bottom. So in this case, how we can reduce the inequality is the big issue. And geoscientists, I'm sure geoscientists, they have a lot of opportunity to work in the different locally. And if particularly this new government means that those particularly for Nepal, in case of Nepal, this local government can hire the geologists, and they can figure out what kind of resources they do have, and they can mine those. They can they can make sell them, which makes a lot of economical vibe. Um, and it can also at the same time it can bring a lot of jobs for the geoscientists, and it is a win-win solutions, a win-win situation which can reduce the inequality in the regions, in the particular that constituency or the state or the local area. So the making cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable is very important part, and in which, as I already discussed about this, the geoscientists have a lot of work to do to build their cities. They can make a cities more resilient. They can study a lot of hazard zones, a lot of vulnerability. They can prepare the maps, and they can recommend which zone is safe for the living, which zone is better for the construction, which zone is better for the residents, and which zone is dangerous. And in such a way, they can build the cities more safe and sustainable. And this is consumption, and I will skip this one as this is not directly related. And climate change, I already discussed about this climate change. As we know, geoscientists have a lot of research to do in the different areas of the climate change, air pollution to the GIG emissions, natural disaster impacts, or the global warming. And it can be studied in the ocean, lakes, or the soil. All this can help to figure out the particular how the temperature is rising in our world. And there are a lot of significant um, role for the geoscientists to not only to research, to monitor, to suggest, to recommend, to find out, to collaborate in the different research and development in the climate actions. And as a marine geologist, geobiologist, they are working in the marine areas. And we can see this uh, marine market is almost 3 trillion per year, which is almost 5% of global GDP. It is a huge opportunity for geologists to contribute in these areas. There are, I do not have more time to explain here, then definitely this, I'm running out of time. So there are a lot of opportunities for geologists to do work in the ocean, marine environment, as well as the land. So at the end, peace and justice, of course, all the geoscientists or geologists community need to help achieve the peace and inclusive societies for sustainable development. It is important for assuring right to information, freedom to speech for all, and we respect each our colleagues and make a better environment for all of us. And finally, we have a lot of opportunity to partnership as for achieving the SDG by 2030, and earth scientists can, and earth scientist community can make a significant role to contribute to achieving the SDG through, as they are working in a number of sectors: agriculture, education, health, water, energy, infrastructure, industry, government, and space. So there is always important for the data collection, mapping, monitoring, management, research and development, innovation, capacity building, technology transfer, and which can significantly contribute to achieve the SDG by 2030. And how geologists, as I already discussed much here, I am just showing the audience that these are the few of the sectors which directly connected with the geoscientists for the sustainable development. Agriculture, as we already did, agriculture part, mining part, tunneling, groundwater, hydropower and dams, we can contribute directly, highway and the roads, transmission lines, bridges, and city planning and city development, even airports and building towers and infrastructures, um, particularly big buildings and natural hazards. These are the few of them, which are the major sectors which are directly related for the sustainable developments. And finally, I will go through the policy discussions here. We have to introduce innovative policy measures for to improve the sustainable development, which is followed by the better law and enforcement. And we have to make long-term disaster plans for national and local levels. And similarly, develop the different type of natural resources, which can be, which need to be built in the industry. And there are a lot of investment needed for the infrastructure development, geoparks, or the geo environment management. And we have to improve the institutional capacity and data banks to collect the appropriate data, as this is the time for data prediction. And better funding and financing is very important for the making institutions or the implementing those policy. And transparency and good governance is equally important for the development of sustainable citizen community, citizen participation in planning and development process. And finally, based on this, we can save our cities. We can transfer our cities and build smart, resilient, livable, sustainable communities. And human resource development is and capacity building for the government, for the private sector, as well as the student is really essential. And finally, the collaboration and networking will provide a lot of opportunity for government agencies, private sector, NGOs, academia, all. And thank you so much for your time. And I will conclude here my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Joshi, for your overarching view on how we can, achieve these sustainable goals by 2030, and what's the importance of geoscience, or how can geoscientists help to achieve these sustainable development goals. That's a very fantastic one, and I would like to thank you for your wonderful presentation. And there are a couple of questions both in Zoom chat box and Facebook. I will take them one by one. So first question, Dr. Joshi, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Dr.
Okay,
Adhikari, I'm very clearly hearing you. Yeah, please.
Okay, good. So the first question from Zoom, Kalim Asraf, is asking, what is the sustainability means? How can you, explain with the easy example or simple example, and how geoscience related with? You have explained a little bit, but can you just elaborate?
Yeah, it is well defined that sustainable development means that that the situation or that the natural resources which meet the needs of the present generations without compromising the ability of the future generations. It means that if we can utilize all of our natural resources at a time and will not keep them for the future generation, this is not sustainable. Now many countries and many cities that is happening. So as a geoscientist, as a geologist, we have to think that the natural resources is limited, and our cities, our communities, which need this in the sustainable manner. Of course, we do have a lot of chance to dig out or the use this, but we have to think our future generation how they will be survived. For example, even in the groundwater. Okay, this is a big issue in Kathmandu. Am I right, Dr. Adhikari?
Yes,
And
yes.
now, if we can, we can utilize this groundwater from Kathmandu, and what happened in the future, 20 years later? Can we think whether we will be survive or not? So this is one small example. Similarly, there are a lot of other natural resources. We have the metallic or the ores. If we utilize them, for example, coal or the crude oil, we are using very rapidly, and one day that would be run out. So this means that we have to wisely utilize our resources so that it can be help to make our life easier now, and it is at the same time it will be save our future generations.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Joshi, for your well illustrated answer, because another question you have already had this also from Gulab Rabbani, asking how sustainable development helps to preserve the limited non-renewable resources. Yes, of course, you have rightly mentioned that. And I'll take one question from Facebook from Giri Nepali Khatri. So he's asking, how can geoscientists or experts contribute for sustainable urban development, for example, in Kathmandu, where research and technical assistance are not recognized or poorly recognized? So what's your opinion on that?
That is a fantastic question. As I'm personally also engaged to make the Kathmandu city livable and sustainable since 5-6 years, and I'm very closely working with the local community and the ministries of Nepal. As we can see, the Kathmandu Valley have a lot of issues as well as opportunities. Issue in the means that, as I already mentioned in my presentation, that there are issue with the traffic congestion, pollution, and the road accident. At the same time, there are nowadays, if intense rainfall happen, there are the flooding event happening. So how we can tackle this? The first important part is the land use plan. Unfortunately, our valley is very old, very historical one, and that is haphazardly, the land use was used haphazard way, in so that there is no particular zone for the forest. There is no particular zone for the parks or uh, to make a city sustainable. For example, if something happen, let me ask the same question. If something happened, for example, if earthquake happen in the Kathmandu Valley, Dr. Basant, do you have any kind of solution? Something happened, and where the people want to go? The first, I can't see there is a free space there. Okay, and we know most of the time there should be free space. There should be, I know, the schools or the public places where the people can go very fast to save themselves. So this is lacking. These are the dots we have to join. So I mean that to tackle this, geoscientists have the big role. Geoscientists can make those donation maps. They can build the what are the vulnerability there. How government should utilize the land. How government should build the infrastructure. Um, your geoengineers can help to make the big infrastructure or the smart cities. And unfortunately, that is not happening so rapidly, but there are some, of course, there are some good initiative recently, and we are also happy to help on them.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Joshi. Yes, there are, I mean, still working some geoscientists are helping for this planning and, so for metro rail construction or other groundwater issues in Kathmandu Valley. Yeah, slowly they are coming up, but it's still a long way to go. And there's another thing from Pranjal Paudel, I think you have already addressed about the connection between geoscientists and poverty. So another from Sakir Laska asking how can can you explain or how you relate that job opportunities can reduce the inequality in our society? So can you just elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, as I mentioned before during my presentation, that for example, I will take a case of Nepal. And now there are, there are 753 local government. Am I right? And those government are building lot of infrastructures now. You see, mostly they are building roads and road everywhere nowadays, and but without considering what are the rock condition, what is the soil condition, what is the hazard condition. Even they are, haphazardly building the roads. And I will give you one example. If they will consider to bring one geologist or geoscientist in as their one official, which they can call the resilient officer or the, any kind of officer. He or she can help to find out what are the natural resources on that particular local area, how they can utilize, how they can build, how they can sell, one thing. Another, how they can develop their infrastructure, how they can build these small cities and communities which are safe, efficient, and sustainable. You see, and at the same time, if they can provide only one official geoscientist, it can bring almost 833 geoscientists in the country. I'm saying only one. This is essential actually. This is happening everywhere in the world. Without geologists, you can't go with the big infrastructure or the building a lot of hydropowers or dam or tunnel or whatever you want to make. It is essential to be at least one geologist, one or scientist who can suggest you precisely, work with the engineers, work with the other colleagues, sociologists or whatever. So this is the one good example which can create a lot of jobs there. This is one example. There are a lot of plenty of examples there how we can create the jobs.
Yes, absolutely. I agree, Dr. Joshi, because, to provide the geoscientists in the field, not only the inequality in the society, but also inequality between the gender also, in different kind of genders, we can involve them and we can give the opportunity for them to achieve the sustainable goal and other things. So I'll take another,
yeah, particularly for women and, the girls,
yeah.
they are very lacking in the geoscientist community,
Yeah.
and we have to think about that. We have to bring them on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take one question, another question from Facebook. So Province Rest is asking, in Nepal, are there any geologists who are working in agriculture purposes, like soil type, suitable crops, or agriculture planning? I think yes, there are many people who are working in this field, especially for the soil identification and interaction between natural hazards and soil productivity, and for better planning, sustainable watershed management, and others. So do you have more things to add, Dr. Joshi?
No, I'm sure you have already mentioned that. I'm sure there are a lot of people working on the field, but I have a limited knowledge on that. How people are contributing to the agriculture sector. I'm sure some geologists are working in the agriculture ministry or somewhere, but precisely how they can help, particularly from the private sector or the some institutions. If you have some idea, you can elaborate it.
I mean, there are lots of examples how geologists are working in the agriculture production. For example, in Nepal Agriculture Ministry, with the help of United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. So, they are working and with soil scientists who are basically, some soil scientists are, have a background of geology and earth science. So, there are a couple of examples. So we can talk this later on. Praveen Shrestha, if you are interested, we can discuss later on more. So another question from Sasmi Paudal asking, how can geoscientists help for sustainable water management and provision of clean water in developing countries?
Yes, this is a great, good question actually, particularly for the context of mountainous countries like Nepal. And You see, as a geologist, you have a two opportunity. One is you can study precisely watershed management in the mountain areas. At the same time, you have opportunity to work in the lowland area. In the as a hydrogeologist, you can work on the underground water, you know, and which can bring for the groundwater can be utilized for the drinking water. It can be utilized for the irrigation purpose or different purpose. And in the mountain area, there is a spring water. You know, we have a different opportunity for a spring, and that spring are not utilized well. And nowadays, I'm fortunately I have a opportunity to work one time in Rolpa. It is back almost 10 years back. So I found that there were a lot of good springs were there, but I don't know now what is happening. But if geologists can find out those springs and protect them, you know, as the desertification is happening, as the deforestation is happening, and a lot of catchment area is without jungles and the forests, so they are abundant. So in that condition, if geoscientists can look into those areas, in particularly in the Himalayan and the mountain terrains, and particularly in the uh, lowland, in the Tarai region, they can go for the groundwater. That will be fantastic. I think that will help a lot to bring the safe and drinking water. And I want to add a small thing here. Um, Somehow I have tossed during my presentation. In in the flat land, there are arsenic contaminated water is there. Yeah, am I right, Dr.
Yes, yes,
Basant? Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So in this condition, there is also an opportunity for the scientists, particularly earth scientists, who can monitor, who can find out the source, this natural source or the artificial source, and recommend how we can remove those kind of contamination from the drinking water. That is also the one sector which can be need to consider for the work.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Joshi, and I also see that former Minister Ganesh sir also mentioned about this use of rainwater harvesting, because the groundwater level is decreasing year by year in Kathmandu Valley. So yes, we can promote such kind of activities there. So yes, another question from again Gulab Rabbani. So it's not directly to geology and things, but once you are presenting on sustainable development goals, asking is it possible to complete the tasks set by Sustainable Development Goal by 2030? In your opinion, Dr. Joshi?
This is the this is the big challenge. Really, uh, United Nations is continuously monitoring, evaluating these tasks yearly basis, and very few countries able to address those issues. And UNSCAP, Thailand, they are also working hard to monitoring in the Asian part, and the symptoms are not very positive in the context of developing countries. Of course, there are some countries which are doing good, and some uh, SDGs, not for all. Some countries are doing some in better in some SDGs. Some other countries are doing in better in the other SDGs. So it means that as a holistic approach, there is a big challenge for the countries and local governments to achieve this. Uh, of, for that, that we have to, as an individual, as a community, as a geoscientist, we have to contribute hard to achieve these things. That's why I guess you have make this webinar and this opportunity to discuss we all, and how we can contribute to the get these SDGs by 2030. So this is
Yes.
all of our role is very vital on that.
Yes, Dr. Joshi, I would just like to add here, we have reviewed sustainable development goals just after, not after, during the pandemic. And in terms of short term, long, medium term, and long term, what would be the effect on this? And the situation is not that optimistic because of this situation, and the economy is really going down. So yeah, I can see that there are lots of colleagues who are working in the government and asking. So one question from Arjun Neupane is that policymakers are not serious on the study of geoscience in the infrastructure development, especially in the context of developing countries. So what's your opinion? How can we improve such kind of things? Dr. Joshi, do you have any
So,
perception,
yeah,
observation?
for that there are two things I want to consider here. One is as a geoscientist, we have to show some uh, we have to play a vital role. Vital role means we have to show the governments, we have to show the private sector what is the scope, what is the role of the geoscientists, how geoscientists can contribute in the different sectors. This is one thing. We have to make our one judgment, one we have to address all these issues, what is burning issues happening, and how we can contribute toward that. We have to show the leaders, show the city leaders or the ministry leaders or the government or the academia. At the same time, we have to show them the examples from the different countries in the particularly developed country, how they are accommodating geoscientists in the different level, from the local level to the top level. Top level means the federal level, from ocean to space. It is wide field. Geoscientists have to work. Even it can work from the small soil to, you see, the unbounded sky. There is a space. Even now, geoscientists are working in the Mars and other planets as well. So this is our role. We have to also work hard to convince our leaders, our politicians, our policymaker and planner what is the importance of us, and tell them, not only inform, but we have to show them some best examples and case studies. Okay, we can do it. How we can do? Okay, these are the things we can contribute in this all these sectors and all these goals to achieve. And then definitely these are the part of community. They understand well, and they will understand, and they will provide you the opportunity to work. Dr. Adhikari, I'm sure, as I'm also from Nepal, and I have good knowledge in the developing country. As I'm from the UN side, I'm also working in the Asia and Pacific, mostly developing country. So I realize that most of the policymaker and planner do not know the scope and role of the geologist, role of the earth scientist. They say okay, you have to, mostly particularly those developing world, they are saying, okay, you have to work on this rock, and you can go in the jungle areas or the Himalayan areas and do some work. They are not talking about the infrastructure development. They are not talking about the roadways, highways, dams. Nowadays there are a lot of people working in this sector, but that there are the limitation as well.
Yes, I agree, Dr. Joseph, because once we show our policymakers about some successful case studies based on scientific evidences, and then these policymakers will be convinced. So what we always advocate from our side, and maybe the same as from the UN, the science-based decision-making process should be addressed and include in the government planning process, and that's how we can contribute on that aspect. So before I ask another question, I would like to request our participant to post your question within 5 minutes. If you have anything to ask, then we'll stop taking questions. Thank you very much. So from Basanta Banjari is asking that it is very hard to get field-based job for female geologists in Nepal. They are barely trusted by clients to do so. So how can we expect the general equality? Do you have any observation, Dr. Joshi?
Yeah, compared to our time or even go past, I'm very optimistic that there are a lot of ladies are coming up. They are very well trained, and they are contributing a lot. Even we can see in the government now, they are. You might have some colleagues. They are working at high level now. Uh, I'm sure this gender balance is gradually, developing, but still we have to work a lot. Still, we have to convince our community to send the your daughter, your your wife, whatever your lady in the geoscience for study, for work, because mostly I guess that the families are reluctant to send uh, the ladies, is that they have to go long way, and in the difficult terrain they have to live long for the uh, experiment or the field study for the long time out from the home. So that is the one cause, and at the same time there are some other issues, maybe job issues or the when. So but nowadays everywhere in the world, this all the genders, they are working equally, and they're fantastic to have equal opportunity for all, not biased with the gender. And I'm sure in Nepal or developing country, many of the developing countries, so people are coming up, and then the particularly the ladies, and they are fantastically working in the field geologist. They can also going for the hydropower, dam, tunnels, and even they are working in the different other countries from the contributing to the other developed countries from the developing countries. So uh, these are the good examples we can show on.
Yes, Dr. Joshi, I agree that, compared to past, now the things are coming up, and when you go to the different, infrastructure project or research field where geoscientists involved, we can see lots of female scientists or female geologists. So things are coming up, but it's a long way to go. Yes, another question from Roderick Sam asking, how dynamic is the role of geoscientists in the epidemiology studies?
Epidemiology studies, that is a very particular part, I guess. And then uh, epidemiology, this contaminated part that we can study, but we can recommend. And but I guess we have a limited role as a earth scientist in that uh, epidemiology. I have not very wealth of knowledge on that particular subject, but I'm sure I have seen there are a lot of geologists who are working with the doctors, particularly in the industrial contamination or the heavy metal contamination parts. And do you have other cases, particularly from developing countries?
I mean, you can, a geologist or geoscientist can work to reduce the epidemiological disasters, especially after
What
the
is
flooding situation, water course epidemiology and others. But you cannot directly relate everything
exactly what
to
I'm
us, the
saying? That's what.
geoscientists to the others. Yes, but there are some links. So another question from Eric Wanda asking, how can we apply GIS and remote sensing to achieve the sustainable development goal? So do you think any relation between this GIS and remote sensing on that?
This has significant and well relation with the sustainable development. For example, I'll give you example. Okay, now every year, in the Nepalese Himalaya, there are a lot of landslides going. Yeah, am I right? There are
Yes.
flooding. One small example, that if remote sensing is used and it can be mapped well, which area is very dangerous or the vulnerable for the landslide, and people without knowing, they are at the next year they are building homes there. You know, we already know about that. So every year that the phenomena is happening, and a lot of casualties is happening, lot of uh, property loss is happening. So I mean that only one example I'm giving this: if we can make the good mapping that particular area, and we can suggest to people, please don't go, this is the vulnerable area for landslide, for the flooding, or even earthquake also. Once earthquake came, strike, there are a lot of opportunity to the landslide. So it can help to people to live, save their lives and property damage. So which directly linked to the sustainable development, you see. This is
Yes.
just one example. There are a lot of example. Even in the next big example, I mean the even in the it can be used in the city level. It can be used the regional level. Even it can be the country level. So the satellite mapping and this have a big and very important role for the sustainable development, particularly DRR, disaster risk reduction.
Yes. Yes, I agree, because I'm working in the field of disaster risk reduction and management. So use of these remote sensing technologies are really important to understand the earth surfaces and how this is going on. And with the development of recent satellite images and satellite techniques, we can detect lots of things which we can use for our analysis and other things. Yes, that's a fantastic one. And the Pranjal portal is again asking that, how can you relate geoscience on Sustainable Development Goal 15, life on land?
Okay, life on land. Due to time limit, I couldn't present it. But here, can I share the slide?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I okay. Just a minute.
Yes, we can see your
Yes.
slide now. Yeah.
Okay, you can see I have made some comments here. Almost 2.6 billion people depend on directly on the agriculture for living. You see, agriculture, how we already discussed about what is the role of the geoscientist in agriculture. It can be, utilized. And around 1.6 billion people depend on forest and their livelihood. Forest means there is watershed. There is a groundwater. There is a, all surface water. This is because of the forest area. And if you see entirely the ecosystem of this livelihood, it costs almost 125 trillion per year. So how huge is this? This is the market. This is the market for geoscientists, geologists who can contribute a lot. And this plant life provide 80% of human diet. We already know this. And forests cover 30% of earth surface, which is preserving for the sustainable development, which is actually preserving mother planet and keeping us safe. So unfortunately, 13 million hectares of the forest are losing every year. So this is the big challenge for us. So if that is happening every year, you can guess how long our forest will be survive. So the sustainable development is very related with a life on land. It is an ecosystem. It is a biodiversity, which we all are connected. We not only human, all the forest, all the animals, all the plants, and geoscientists have a lot of roles in that. Not only particularly one subject or one the sector, the diversified sector, diversified field.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Joshi. So can you just close your screen sharing?
Okay, sure.
Yes, I agree with you also, because we can map lots of natural hazards, which are really destroying the ecosystem, and then related to other things. So I will ask last question from Zoom before I ask some of the questions that I have in my mind. So maybe Gulab Rabbani asking, because you explained that you are working in Asia and Pacific. So although sustainable development goals are quite related with the country perspective, the declaration and the treaties signed by the country, so the country should be work on these. But Gulab is asking that role of Asia as a whole for this achieving sustainable development now and then. So do you have any kind of perception on the overarching view of how Asia is playing important role on this?
Yeah, of course. This is really genuine question, and then how Asia is working. I will show one my slide which can clearly show how Asia should work. May I show? Okay, let me. Admin can allow me to share my
Yes, please,
slide.
please.
Okay, here you see what I was showing before. How our cities are look like. You see, these are the not one city look like. This is the representative photographs. Every developing countries cities are like this. Am I right? So what are the situation? You see, every country is in Asia, most of the every country, I must say, every country means most of the developing countries. Some developed country, they have achieved this uh, level, but however, majority of developing countries have the same situation. There is a air pollution, there is a traffic congestion, there is a road accident and fatalities. So all is Asia's problem. Actually, this is the world problem. And what I was mentioning here is the mega trend. This, rapid urbanization or the population growth, how to accommodate those population coming up in the coming 20 or 30 years, how to make our new cities and communities, or how we can transform our cities, existing cities, to more sustainable. All these aspect is collectively um, needed to work on. So I mean, all Asian countries, all the cities, all the communities need to work to figure out these challenges, these issues, and tackle those and address those issues. How we can get rid of this kind of situation and how we can improve our air, which is the universal, our water, our soil, our life, and it is a sheer opportunities, sheer contribution for all, for Asia, not only Asia, for the world, for the universe. I mean, the universe means in terms of Earth.
Yes, thank you. I agree with you. And another thing is that, can you just close your screen sharing? Another thing we have to deal with, the Asia consists of, large population, if you take India and China, and, most of the population growth and the people are living here. So there must be, lots of, challenges, and then as well as the opportunity to meet the sustainable development goals from the Asian perspective. And yes, in Facebook, I can see that Purna Chandra Lal Raj Bhandari is, just commenting and suggesting, can't we build the capacity of municipality on identification of landslide hazard? Needs to be geohazard assessment tool, simple and easy, and build the capacity as local level. Yes, absolutely. I think, Purna sir, you are right. Dr. Joshi, do you have any comments on that?
Of course, this is obvious, and then I'm sure, particularly you guys are working on that part. I'm not directly involved in this. Of course, in the policy planning and DRR level, I'm working, but precisely in the making maps and these things, I have done very very uh, 5 maybe 10 years ago back. Now I'm fully aware about this situation, but um, as he mentioned, mainly we have to think about the land use planning first. And these is the particular things. If we want to make our cities and community more resilient and sustainable, we have to work on the land use planning. What kind of, how we can use the lands first, and other, and then during that process automatically this, this hazard mapping, or the vulnerable mapping, or the geomorphological mapping, geological mapping, soil mapping, that will come up. First you have to identify which place you have to do what thing. This is fundamental. And urban planning second, and that will be included with the transport planning. They are very, very, connected, not isolated. So as a policymaker or the planner, I humbly request all those leaders, city leaders and planners, kindly consider this. Please do not isolately work on one aspect. Once you want to develop any city or any particular area, please work on land use planning and include the uh, include the urban plan as well as the transport plan, and then DRR, and then holistically it will be come up.
Yes, yes, Dr. Joshi, I agree that, and Purachandra Lal Bandari, yes, we have to do on that way, and we are working. We are developing very easy tools where the communities or the local government officials or the local people can use with the very minimum training. And we are developing the virtual reality and some games and web-based platforms that will come after some month, but we are working on it, and that would be very fantastic for our local communities to cope on, especially on the planning and designing process from the beginning. So thank you, our participant, for your wonderful question.
Dr. Adhikari, may I add one thing here?
Yes,
I
please.
forgot to add actually I have been working in the smart city or the resilient city since a long time, and as a UN, we are helping all the communities and countries, particularly Nepal. Also, we are organizing time to time the capacity building programs. How we can make the cities and community more sustainable, resilient, and livable. So if anybody, any government agency or any academicians or any people want to, attend those kind of training programs or the workshops, we will be happy to, help. We will be happy to, work with them.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Joshi. And we also expect, that kind of help from the perspective of Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction, which is a research-based organization here in Nepal. And, we are working with the different, development partners, including UN and others, to achieve the sustainable development goals and to, implement the Sendai framework of disaster risk reduction in 4 priorities, and also Paris climate and others. Yes, definitely that would be a fantastic idea. So before end, I would like to ask one, particular interest of mine with you. The role of geoscientists to achieve the sustainable development goal is very, very important, but that is quite quite easy, and we can see that in developed world many geoscientists are working on this direction. But in the developing world, maybe people are working on that way, but they don't know they are really contributing to achieve the sustainable development goal, because we are not always explaining how these things are related. Geoscientific study, for example, construction of infrastructure development, and then, research and agriculture, and what you have rightly mentioned about this arsenic contamination and others. We are working on that way, but maybe some of the people, they don't know they are really contributing to achieve the sustainable development goal. So, how do you think we can increase the, such kind of connection and how can we increase the awareness about the people to relate such kind of things actually to meet the international treaties and other things that government has done. So do you have any observation, final
Okay.
comments?
Yeah. Before addressing, I want to comment one thing before I forget, because you see, most of the developing countries' issue is that all work are conducting in isolation most of the time. For
Yeah.
example, one civil engineer working separately in the road construction, one geologist working in his one area, and academician, those universities are working differently, and local governments work very different way compared with the the federal. So it means that what if I will give you example. One student who is the master student, say, who is working for geoscience research or something, his research is belongs to some company, okay, because they want to power or hydro or the groundwater, something you can imagine, anything. It can connect it well, and that private sector will pay him little bit, for the work, and he can do that work, and that work can be utilized by private sector, you see, and that private sector can sell that to the his clients, and that research can go to the university again and publish some good article, good journal paper, whatever, the report, and again this cycle will continue, and student is beneficial, institution is beneficial, private sector is beneficial. This how this developed country works, you know so unfortunately this is not happening in the developing, most of the developing country, not all. So connecting this, what you mentioned, so this is obvious that isolately you are contributing, the lot of different people are contributing toward the end of the achieving the SDGs, but nobody knows why. One thing, we have to localize it first. First important thing is SDGs should be localized. Localized means what? SDG for what? For whom? Why? You have to ask these questions. So for people, for the community. If you are doing anything, any work, that is for community, that is for yourself. So how you can contribute to reduce the poverty, for example, any work. So localized means in your community what you have done. So it starts from here. So many of the developed countries, they have fantastic idea to localize the SDGs. And in case of Japan, every university is working on that, every community is working that, every ward office is working on that, and they are collectively, inviting more other provinces or the federal, and they are showing, okay, we are doing this, and what is your help, what is your, how you can contribute, uh, budget wise, or the scientific way, or all the possible ways. So but unfortunately, if one university is working on that, they will even not put how SDG will be affected or they can contribute. If one institution or the government is doing some work, even they can work in some sustainable manner, they will not knowing that they are contributing to the SDG, because they are not making in the lead, they are not connecting these SDGs in their working. Am I right? So
Yes, yes.
in this situation, it is very fundamental that you all your scientists need to be convinced to the leader, policymaker, planner, all the government. All this what we are doing for our sustainability, this will ultimately help to achieve the SDG. So it is contribution of SDG, and you can make some kind of reports, you can make some kind of this making reports, and all these journals is very important, because these are the things to show the audience, so the other people, other countries. So that is the lacking part of the most of the developing country, I have to say.
Yes, thank Dr. Joshi. I agree with you, and I think I will end here. Time has already almost 2 hours. And so thank you, IHRR, for providing me opportunity to moderate this session, and Dr. Joshi for your wonderful presentation. And now I hand over Engineer Suraj Gautam to conclude the session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prasanta, for the excellent moderation and making this webinar session very engaging. We would like to thank Dr. Ganesh Joshi sir for the wonderful review on the importance of geoscience for achieving the SDGs, key issues, challenges, and opportunities. It was quite interesting to see the roles of geoscientists in achieving the SDGs, and we have had a very good discussion as well. We also had a very interesting Q&A session with a good number of questions. We tried our best to address all those questions from the Facebook page live and also from the Zoom chat box. In case you have any further queries, please feel free to connect us by mailing us at info@inhrr.org. I'd also like to convey my big thanks to all of our organizing team, speakers, session moderators, and all the participants for participating in this session. The session was really informative and interactive too. We'll be sharing the recorded session on our YouTube channel, and the links will be forwarded to the registered email. We have scheduled a webinar, another series on geoscience for sustainable development, which will, the topic is regarding the architecture of metamorphic core of the Himalaya by Professor Dr. Rodolphe Carosi. Which it will be hosted on the upcoming Sunday, that is August 30 at the same time, 20 NPT. It's GMT plus 5:45. And we'd also like to request all our participants to please fill up the feedback form. And of the few topic suggestions received from our feedback survey form, we addressed one of the requests today, that is regarding the importance of geoscience for achieving sustainable development goals. So please fill up the feedback survey form and also suggest us about your interest, and we'll try to address them. We'd also like to mention that Institute of Himalayan Risk Reduction will be more than happy to collaborate and organize this kind of relevant webinar in the days to come. So with this, I would like to sign off from our session for today. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Surajji and Dr. Basant and all the audience. Thank you so much. And namaste. Here is a midnight, 1:12, and then I have to say bye-bye. Have a good time and please stay safe. This is a very difficult time with Corona. Have a good time. All the best.